In January 1943, as the world burned in the fires of the Second World War, a lone genius died in a New York hotel room. Nikola Tesla, the man who electrified the modern age, left behind a legacy of myth and mystery. Among his possessions, the U.S. government feared one thing above all: the schematics for a particle beam weapon the press sensationally called a death ray. In an era defined by the race for the atomic bomb, the mere possibility of such a device triggered an immediate, top-secret government seizure of his entire estate. The official verdict, delivered by a top MIT engineer, was that Tesla's final ideas were pure fantasy, speculative, unworkable, and of no value. The case was closed. But if his work was worthless, why did the military secretly photograph every single page before returning the collection to his family? The government's actions created a contradiction that has haunted historians for decades, raising a chilling question: was it a colossal failure of imagination, or a calculated act of burying a future they weren't ready to reveal? On the night of January 7, 1943, Nikola Tesla died alone in room 3327 of the Hotel New Yorker. The discovery of his body the next morning triggered a silent, multi-agency alarm that reverberated from New York to Washington. The news sent his nephew, Sava Kosanović, a Yugoslav diplomat, rushing to the hotel. His goal was to secure his uncle's effects, particularly a safe he believed held the most sensitive designs. But he was not the only one moving. The moment the report hit the wires, J. Edgar Hoover's FBI and the War Department began to turn their bureaucratic gears. The fear was palpable. What if the death ray was real? What if its schematics were sitting in that room, vulnerable to Axis spies, or even America's uneasy Soviet allies? A race began, not for a treasure, but for a threat. The government, however, did not act with the brute force of a clandestine raid. The machinery of state prefers the quiet authority of legal instruments. The key that unlocked Tesla's estate was found not in a lockpick, but in a piece of wartime legislation, the Trading with the Enemy Act. This law empowered a little-known agency, the Office of Alien Property Custodian, or APC, to seize the assets of foreign nationals. In a stunning bureaucratic twist, the law was applied not to Tesla, a naturalized American citizen for over 50 years, but to his heir. Sava Kosanović's status as a foreign official provided the perfect legal pretext. The government's argument was chillingly simple. To protect Tesla's research from falling under foreign control, it would first have to place it under its own. What followed was a textbook seizure. Agents from the APC, accompanied by FBI observers, arrived not with weapons drawn, but with clipboards and official seals. They formally impounded everything. Approximately 80 trunks of material were collected from his hotel room and various storage facilities. A lifetime of research, schematics, and correspondence, all reduced to inventory numbers on a government ledger. For Kosanović, it was a profound violation. He watched as the nation his uncle had enriched with his genius used the color of law to dispossess him of his inheritance. It was a grieving nephew confronting the impersonal, unyielding logic of a national security state in a time of total war. With Tesla's estate now under lock and key, the government faced a problem. They were custodians, not physicists. The 80 trunks represented a Schrödinger's cat of national security. The task of assessing them fell to Dr. Vannevar Bush, head of the Office of Scientific Research and Development, and the gatekeeper of America's wartime technology. Bush needed a quick, decisive, and unimpeachably credible evaluation. The man he chose was Dr. John G. Trump, a distinguished professor at MIT and a leading expert in high-voltage machinery. Trump was the antithesis of Tesla, a grounded, pragmatic engineer, a man of repeatable results and peer-reviewed principles. He was the perfect instrument to separate scientific fact from speculative fiction. For 3 days, Dr. Trump entered the cold warehouse that held Tesla's legacy. Surrounded by towering stacks of trunks, he began a monumental task of intellectual autopsy. He was not looking for Tesla's past triumphs, but for the schematics of the future, specifically, the particle beam weapon. His findings, compiled in a now declassified report, were swift and unequivocal. Trump concluded that Tesla's efforts were primarily, quote, speculative, philosophical, and somewhat promotional in character, adding that they did not contain sound, workable principles or methods for realizing such results. It was a damning assessment. The report was an immense relief for the War Department. It provided the official, expert-backed justification to close the file. The death ray was officially debunked. The specter of Tesla's genius contained not by a lock and key, but by the dispassionate verdict of a trusted contemporary. This verdict, however, was not the end. It was the beginning of a long and murky chapter of archival limbo. For nearly a decade, Tesla's life's work sat in a government warehouse. The official explanation was a tangle of legalisms and probate complexities, a plausible excuse that masked a deeper, more strategic inertia. The world was changing, the Cold War was beginning, and Kosanović's requests to reclaim his uncle's estate were met with grinding bureaucratic delays. What this delay was for would not become clear for half a century. Hidden within once redacted FBI files lies the truth. Before a single page was ever considered for release, a separate, clandestine process was set in motion. Agents from the G2 intelligence arm of the Army Air Forces were dispatched to the warehouse. Their task was methodical, inconsequential, to photograph the entirety of Nikola Tesla's estate onto microfilm. For weeks they worked under sterile lights, transforming the inventor's sprawling archive into compact reels of film. This was not an act of preservation, it was an act of appropriation. While publicly dismissing the collection as fantasy, the United States was secretly creating its own permanent classified copy, a shadow archive. Finally, in 1952, after a relentless campaign by Kosanović, the bureaucratic dam broke. The Office of Alien Property formally released the estate. The heavy wooden crates were loaded onto a cargo ship bound for Yugoslavia, destined to become the heart of the Nikola Tesla Museum in Belgrade. The official narrative was sealed. The government had acted responsibly, assessed the materials, found nothing of value, and returned the property. It was a clean, procedural story. But the paper trail tells a more complicated tale. The government's own meticulous record-keeping paradoxically documented a potential loss of records, with internal memos referencing a particular trunk that was allegedly separated and never seen again, creating a void that has fueled legends for generations. The most damning contradiction, however, emerged years later from the classified files of the burgeoning military-industrial complex. In the mid-1950s, the U.S. Air Force initiated a top-secret research program called Project Nick. Its objective, to explore the feasibility of a particle beam weapon for ballistic missile defense. The project's foundational documents explicitly reference Tesla's concepts, exploring the very same principles that Dr. John G. Trump had declared to be speculative just a decade earlier. Here was the proof. The government had not dismissed Tesla's work, it had compartmentalized it. This dual-track approach, public dismissal and private exploration, reveals the true nature of its actions. It wasn't about suppressing a single weapon. It was about controlling an entire legacy, picking it apart a la carte in the classified darkness, while allowing the world to believe the book had been closed. And so we are left with the central, haunting question. Did the sober procedural review by men like John Trump represent a colossal failure of imagination? Or is the alternate possibility more disturbing, that they did recognize something truly revolutionary and succeeded not in seizing a weapon, but in quietly classifying a future they were not yet ready to confront? And so, our investigation draws to a close. Thank you for joining us on this journey, for seeking out the answers alongside us. If you found this exploration compelling, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Your support is vital, and it allows us to continue bringing these stories to light. And to ensure you don't miss our next investigation, make sure to click that notification bell. Until then, the truth awaits.